I've been away actually. I've been on holiday. I just came back today. So my first video now I'm going to make for you guys. Although I made a post, but I'm going to go into that. But this video will be divided into this audio will be divided into 3 parts. The first part we will be speaking about, was May and Yul's divorce actually concluded? And then the second part will be, who exactly is Mrs. Judy Austin Yul Edochie? And the third, we will go into the legal battle of Judy versus Obasi, Judy versus Mommy Rita. The questions are now moving from Facebook into the courtroom. Social media is not real life, my darling. So let's get it started. There is something very important that needs to be clarified because for months, people have repeating that May and Yul Edochie were finally divorced in January of 2026. For some reason, the rumor stirred all over Facebook. We don't know the docket number or even what the case was all about. But the question is, where is the final judgment? Where is the decree dissolving that marriage? Because a date anticipated for judgment is not the same thing as judgment actually being delivered. 2 things. I repeat, a date anticipated for judgment is not the same as judgment actually being delivered. Let that sink for a while. According to the information that I have now received from a very reliable source, that the January 2026 proceedings did not result in a final dissolution of May and Yul's marriage. So, according to that information, the matter was actually indeed scheduled in early January, but encountered procedural development. The parties were not present, and there were new developments arisen during the proceedings, and the previously filed written addresses could no longer simply be relied upon. Counsels in that proceedings therefore had to address the changed position before the matter could proceed to final judgment. Now, I want to be responsible here. I have not seen a certified court record confirming those specific procedural details. So I am not presenting them to you as findings made by the judge. But there is something we can independently verify. In February 2026, Yul Edochie himself publicly described the divorce case as ongoing. People listening to Yul's podcast, and they suddenly have selective amnesia. They suddenly have selective outrage. They took the word that Yul said that May was his ex-wife and failed to actually listen to the word that Yul Edochie used in that podcast. That's why context is always very important. When somebody says something, you got to look at the context at which those words were spoken. For example, in Mr. Obasi's podcast, Mr. Obasi was explaining his relationship with Judy. In that explanation, Mr. Obasi was trying to say, we were in good terms. We even tried to sort this situation out. We tried to resolve our problem. We even met in an hotel to talk about it. We actually even made love. Do you get it? It's contest. It was not malicious. It's not defaming. Mr. Obasi was telling his story. He was telling his experience. This is context. And in defamation court cases, context, how words are used matters. So when you focus on certain words and you leave out the entire context, then you lose the essence of what that message is trying to portray. So in Yul Edochie's podcast, he said that his divorce case, he described it as ongoing. Ongoing, let that sink. He explained that the reason he was no longer posting his children with May was because there was a court order restricting the posting of the children because of the ongoing divorce case. That is very significant. If a final dissolution has already occurred in early January, we need to see the actual court recording establishing exactly what was decided and when. And this matters now because of what Judy is currently doing in court. Now, the legal position should not be reconstructed from Instagram names, Facebook posts, or assumption. If somebody says May and Yul were divorced in January, please hold on. Derek, please. Cancellation, please. I'm sorry there. My son was, you see, if somebody says May and Yul were divorced in January, therefore Judy could subsequently become Mrs. Yul Edochie. It's just Facebook, Instagram, it's a post. My response is simple. Show us the decree. And then show us the date of any subsequent marriage between Yul and Judy. Those dates would answer a great deal. Because if May and Yul's statutory marriage remains subsisting, the legal consequences are completely different from a situation in which Yul became legally free to marry and thereafter contracted another valid marriage. This is why date matters. This is why court documents matters. And this is why I am no longer comfortable repeating the statement that May and Yul's marriage ended in January of 2026 without seeing the actual judgment or decree. There is another important point. The information I received indicates that the 100 million adultery-related claim involving Judy remained part of the substantive matrimonial litigation. You see, when May filed a divorce, she subsequently filed an adultery claim also against Judy. And this she did as part of the substantive matrimonial litigation. It's a part of it. So that the matrimonial litigation is still ongoing. Again, until I have the concurrent certified matrimonial court record, I would describe that as information received rather than a judicial fact. But if that is correct, then the implications are obvious. How can we casually declare the entire matrimonial dispute finished while issues arising from that same proceedings allegedly remain before the court? So my position is not they definitely remain married. My position is much more precise. Produce the judgment establishing they are divorced. Let that sink, because we're going somewhere. Until then, don't ask the public to substitute speculations for a court order. And interestingly, Judy's own new litigation has now made that question much more important. Judy, you claim to be Mrs. Judith Yul Edochie. In your court lawsuit against Obasi and also against Mommy Rita. You see, when you change your name on Instagram and you play around with Yul Edochie's name, that's all nice and well. Anybody can do that. But what you cannot do, Judy, is to go before the Commissioner of Oaths and swear this into oaths under an affidavit and file it in court, and it has been delivered to Mr. Bassi and to Mommy Rita. I'm sorry, I don't know how the lawyers you employed made such a huge blunder. You see, when a case comes to me, we are trained in the Netherlands not to take everything that a client tells you as face value. You must always research, check what they are saying before you can actually administer that into evidence. This is critical. Because how would a lawyer allow you to file an affidavit to take an oath as Mrs. Judith Yul Edochie while the matrimonial procedure between May and Yul is still ongoing? This is a mess, Judith. This is a huge mess. We are discussing this, but the actual game will start. This is huge mess. Okay, and this takes me to the part 2 of this audio. So I will continue in the next part to elaborate further into what I have been trying to say.